This is a problem, not what they think about Europe. I know you're only thinking about the migrant problems on your own soil. I understand that. But nonetheless, these are people, after all, the largest sector of the electorate in the world's largest democracy, if the CNN is going to be believed. Now, these people, they do not know that they're voting in a post-colonial nation, but they vote. A limiting concept of Europe must come to terms with the fact that Europe's internal problems, by which, and I could quote many, not just that old Frankfurter Allgemeine, where all of those intellectuals came in and said why Europe would be better at administering the world because they had known imperialisms. But last week in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, someone writing about the fact that the EU woman, whose name I now forget, had actually managed to do a deal with some bad gender politics thrown in, had managed to do a deal with Iran. There was a great long essay about how, in spite of everything, it was the European Union, this contest with the United States. It was just amazing. So to an extent, but it's all in terms of Innenpolitik. So to an extent, what I'm trying to say is that a limiting concept of Europe to its Innenpolitik as a clue to a whole world politics must come to terms with the fact that Europe is a part of a much larger world now, not all of which is, I mean, you go to Asia with the fierce competitive nationalisms of Asia and China, no one's thinking about Europe. Europe's moment was historically important, but not all-consumingly determining. The sun rises at different times upon the globe today. Paying good attention to England and France is not going to place global Southern modernity in a global context. I quote a recent meretricious book. When the stock exchange closes in London, because that's what globalization is, electronic capital moving, when the stock exchange closes in London, it must wait for Tokyo, and then Mumbai, and in between opens the turbulent and wildly unstable, speculative marriage of socialism and capitalism. I quote Karen Wong. Marriage of socialism and capitalism, where, I quote again, the turnover rates are 10 times higher, where the rules are much different from our boutades about capitalism and others and so on and so forth, where the rules are much different. Yet the uniformization and universalization is rearing to break through, like the steam in the steam engines that we traveled by in my childhood. I hope there are people here who have traveled in steam engines. When people talk about steam engines, they don't know how it is when so much water is being boiled and the damn steam is pushing very long trains across the Indo-Gangetic Plain, and they want to stop it. It screams like it's an absolutely huge wild animal in pain, and the train comes to a halt and coal falls all through into the compartments. It's a very different kind of experience. And that's what one feels about these new marriages of socialism and capitalism, stock exchanges. The universalization and uniformization of capital is rearing to break through, like the steam in the steam engines that we traveled by in my childhood and adolescence, Shanghai and Shenzhen. Those are the two stock exchanges that are wild. When you think of this, then one has to take a deep breath about the idea of the ekphrasis of globalization inside something that you call Europe.